Hi, my name is Jack Bourne, and I'm going to show you how to build Ajax Web Applications. And what you're looking at is the introduction. Believe me, I am not a huge fan of PowerPoint, but I thought it would be a good tool to go through some of the tools that you're going to see me use in some of the tutorials, and I'll give you some links. I'm going to go through this kind of fast, but I want to give you some ideas about some of the tools that I'm using. And don't worry, I will give you links to all of these tools in the resources section. So don't worry if one of the slides goes too fast. There will be other ways for you to get all the links that you need. I'm going to make sure that you have links that take you to each of these tools. Alright, so first of all, disclaimer. I'm going to recommend resources. You are taking upon yourself to do your own due diligence. These are resources that have worked for me. I cannot be responsible for any sort of damages to your computer that are very unlikely to happen, but could potentially happen. So when you download something from the internet, you're taking your own risks here. So please don't contact me and tell me that I owe you a computer. I've given you this disclaimer. Okay, back up your computer, and also when you're making changes to your website, it's good to do a backup of all your database and website files. I'm going to do my best to walk you through this in a way that makes it very easy and very safe for you to follow along, but still you need to do your own due diligence and back up your files. Okay, now when I'm going through these slides, if I give you a link that no longer works, guess what? All you have to do is go to Google and type in the information. For example, if I give you a link to the Firefox browser and the link no longer works, go to Google and type in Firefox browser, and Google will show you what the most obvious link would be. Okay, so let's go through some of these tools. You're going to see me use the Firefox browser. Now, it does not matter whether you use Firefox or Internet Explorer, but I'm using Firefox. There's a lot of reasons why. Some of those include the fact that you can put add-ons into the Firefox browser, such as Firebug. That's the second line here. Firebug is an add-on for Firefox that makes it so easy for you to debug JavaScript. Before, if you're just using Internet Explorer, I'm not aware of any tool using Internet Explorer where if you've got a JavaScript problem, it will give you an idea, point to exactly what's going on, and give you some information about what's going on when the web browser is trying to communicate with your web server. So in other words, Firebug gives you a lot of information, and this is one of those cases where a demonstration is worth 10,000 words. So I'm just going to tell you up front, Firebug, go install it into the Firefox browser. You'll be glad that you did. Web developer, same thing, gives me the ability to turn JavaScript on and off and do all sorts of other really quote-unquote nifty things. And you're going to see me use this time and time again throughout the demonstration. Fire FTP is another add-on. I do not use this very often, but I just wanted to throw it out there because we're talking about Firefox add-ons. If you don't have a dedicated FTP client or software tool, then Fire FTP is one that you can use through the Firefox browser. It's an add-on, so you download it, install it into Firefox, restart Firefox, and you have an FTP client. Now, what you're going to see me use for FTP is FileZilla. It's one that I've been using since almost from the very beginning when I started developing web pages. It's probably the most popular FTP software out there. The other one that I already mentioned is Fire FTP. You could use Dreamweaver, but I like to recommend that you use a dedicated piece of software for FTP. In other words, whether it's free or paid, I recommend that you have a piece of software on your computer that does nothing but FTP stuff. FTP stands for File Transfer Protocol. It's just software that enables you to move files from your hard drive, your computer, up to your web server, and also down from the web server down to your computer. So this is if this is kind of new to you, then I just wanted to go over that this is the software that moves files that we're going to work on, moves them to your web server where you can play with them on the web and other people can see them as well. Okay, you're also going to see me using some code tools. One of those that I have not mentioned yet is Notepad++. This is a free open source piece of software that you can download to your if you've got a Windows computer. I don't know if it works with Apple, or with Macs, but if you've got a Windows machine, then you can download Notepad++, and it's very handy. It just makes it a lot easier to write code, and it's a lot easier to spot problems if you're writing code. Now, you may have a better piece of software that there are tons of code editors out there. You may have something you like better, and that's fine. Use whatever you're comfortable with, but I wanted to tell you that what I'm using, just in case you said, hey, that's pretty neat, where do I get that, what is that, I wanted to go ahead and mention it's called Notepad++. So just Google it, Notepad++ will be very easy to find. And the other one I already mentioned is Firebug. It's an add-on for Firefox. Makes it extremely easy it makes it a lot easier to figure out what went wrong with JavaScript, especially Ajax code. And so without Firebug, I would have banged my head against the wall, and probably jumped out of a third-story window trying to debug JavaScript code. So it makes it a lot easier. The JavaScript that you're going to see me using, and this I'm going to go through in a lot more detail, so don't bother writing down these URLs. But you're going to see me using jQuery or jQuery, however you want to pronounce it. But this is the JavaScript, or yes, I said that correctly, the JavaScript library that I'm going to be using. It makes it, I shouldn't say extremely easy, it makes it much, much easier to do some very powerful things with JavaScript, and particularly write Ajax Web Applications. So you don't have to write these things from scratch. The library gives you a set of tools that I'm going to show you how to use. And then there's a form plugin that works with jQuery, and you'll see me use that. So that's the URL to go get the form plugin. And then I'm going to use another set of tools later on in the demonstrations. This is more along the lines of, I think there's probably going to be a dozen or so demonstration files that you're going to be looking at. And around demonstration file number 8, 9, and 10, maybe 9 and 10, I'm going to start using a JavaScript library called Mapstraction, and that is going to give us the ability to do some things with Google Maps that makes things easier. Okay, moving right along. Google Map. Go to code.google.com/APIs/maps, or just go to google.com and type in Google Maps APIs or Google Map API, and it will take you to the page where you can sign up for a free not a free Google account, but you can sign up for the API key, which is free, but you do have to have a Google account. So if you've got Gmail, then you can go ahead and get your API key. And I will go over this in great detail later on with another tutorial, but I just wanted to go ahead and mention it. Now, the web server, you're going to need to have a web server, whether it's running on your own computer, but more likely you're going to want a web server that is actually connected to the internet. And so you're going to need to make sure that you have MySQL databases. The more the better. I suggest a web hosting company that gives you unlimited number of MySQL databases. You also want to make sure that your hosting company is running a current version of PHP. Some of the code that you're going to see me write later on in the tutorials require PHP 5, and not all hosting companies offer PHP 5. And so right now there's two different flavors of PHP. There's PHP 4 and PHP 5. And PHP 5 comes with some functions and features that PHP 4 does not. So you want to make sure you got a web server that has PHP 5. Now, I've been creating my own websites, building websites for other people for what I consider to be a long time. And during those early years, I struggled with finding a reliable host. I spent my own money. Anyways, I found several web hosting companies that I have bought dedicated servers through, and I've got, I'd say, two or three really good hosting companies. So if you don't have a good website hosting company, or if you want to know of another one, then I'll take you to the one that I use, and I have a promotion code that gives you 1 penny for the first month. Just go to 15 days of jQuery.com/hosting, and I'll give you the promo code so you can sign up for 1 penny for the first month. Try it. If you don't like it, cancel it. It only costs you 1 penny. So that's pretty much it. That is the introduction of building Ajax Web Applications. And so let's go ahead and jump in and get started with the next chapter. Now, with this DVD, instead of tutorials, you are going to also have all of the demonstration files that I've created. I want to make it as easy as possible for you to follow along and really make as few changes as possible and be able to upload these files to your server. Now, there are some files that you're going to need to change. So, for example, when you set up a database, you're going to need to enter in your username, and I'm going to cover all those details, but I'm giving you a lot of files so you can follow along and you don't have to go and download these different JavaScript libraries. I'm going to give them to you all wrapped up in one zip file. So as you see right here, we have a zip file, .zip. But you can't use these files until they're unzipped So what we need to do is you need to right click, and more than likely you've got some software already installed on your computer that will allow you to what's called extract these files from this packaged up smaller zip file to all the files that you're going to be able to use and edit. So what you want to do is you want to right click and choose the line that says extract. Now I have installed lots of different types of FTP archiving software packages. So I can extract using Qt FTP. I've got Izark. I forget, this is WinRAR. So there's a lot of different packages that I have already installed. Now, if you right click and you don't see extract, then what you want to do is you want to go to google.com and type in free zip software. Do your own due diligence, but I would probably point you to either 7-zip, or you could try WinZip. It looks like they have an evaluation package. I would also look for Izark. So I bet you somewhere in here. Izark. Nope. Izark isn't on there. Anyways, I would use 7-zip or something along those lines. So there's lots of different free zip and unzip utilities, but more than likely, like I said, you're going to be able to just right click, and one of the options that you'll have is extract to, and then just choose one of those, and the files will be taken out of the zipped archive and put on your computer. And then when you're done, it will look something like this, where you'll see these demo files. You'll see a folder for Mapstraction, and I'll go through what each of these files are and what they do, and we'll start to open these up. But I wanted to show you how to take the zip file and extract it to your hard drive so that you can then use the files. Now here's something else that's very important. When you're editing PHP files, you want to use software that is not going to is not going to format the line. So in other words, you don't want to open up a PHP file using Word or WordPad. What you want to use ideally would be something like Notepad. So when I right click on one of these, it says edit with Notepad++. Now if you don't have that, you can also open it with just plain old Notepad. That wasn't Notepad. Let me see here. That was Notepad++. Here's Notepad. So this is the regular plain old, everybody has this installed type of Notepad. So this is just a very plain text editor. It's not going to do any formatting whatsoever. No font styles. It's not going to try to wrap a long line onto another line. So it's very important that you make sure that you do not use Word or WordPad to edit PHP files. You want to use Notepad, or what I like to use is Notepad++. And again, you can go to Google and you can type in Notepad++, and it'll take you right to you can go right to the download section. So again, that's open source. Do your own due diligence, and if you have a better code editor that you prefer, that's fine, but just make sure that when you're editing PHP files, you do not use Word or WordPad. And I also would not recommend FrontPage. Dreamweaver, fine, but FrontPage I would definitely not use. Alright, so in this video I'm going to show you how to upload the demonstration files that come with these tutorials. Again, I've set up about a dozen demonstration files approximately, and I'm going to show you how to upload them, how to set up your database, and how to configure some of the files so that you can start using these demonstration examples. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, now if you've set up a database before, then this is going to be old hat and you might want to skip forward in this tutorial. But if you're new to this, then this is going to be very useful, because a lot of people don't know how easy it is, or how easy it can be, to set up your database on your web server. Now again, you've got to have a web hosting provider that gives you MySQL database. Now most hosting providers out there provide that. You are also going to need PHP 5, which is going to come into play later on in the examples. And if your web hosting provider does not provide that, then again, go to 15daysofjquery.com. That's my website, /hosting, and I'll give you a link out to my preferred hosting provider, along with a promotion code to knock the price down to just a penny. But let's go ahead and get started. What I'm going to show you is how to set up a database in 4 steps. Now, depending on your hosting provider, your admin panel may look very different, but the steps are basically the same. You're going to log into your web hosting account. You're going to create a new database. You're going to create a new database user, and you're going to assign the user to the database. And that's the step that most people forget, especially when they're doing this for the first time. But even folks like me sometimes forget to assign the user to the database because we're in a hurry, and then we wonder, why can't we connect to the database? Basically, the logic is this. You could have a lot of different, you could have, let's just use, I'm just pulling numbers out of the air. You could have 3 different database users and 10 different databases. And so the web host, the server needs to know which users have access to which databases. So that's why there's that extra step of assigning the user to the database. If you've only got one user and one database, it would seem pretty obvious, but still, you need to go through the step of assigning the user to the database so the server knows, okay, this user has permissions to use the database. So let me go ahead and break away from the PowerPoint presentation and show you. You're going to watch over my shoulder as I walk you through the steps, and you're going to see me set up a database step by step so you can follow along as closely as possible and get your database up and running. Now, as we're going through this, please be sure to copy all of the details that you use to set up your passwords and your usernames. Copy these into a text file and then print it out, because you're going to need these details later on. So let me go ahead and pause the video and move on to where you can watch over my shoulder as I walk you through this. So as you can see here, I'm logged into my control panel, and I'm currently using a web hosting company that uses cPanel. cPanel just makes it really easy to set up databases, to manage your accounts, add email accounts, do all sorts of things that you need to do to manage a website. cPanel makes it really easy, but it's certainly not the only control panel out there. So if your web hosting company doesn't have cPanel, of course, you can always use my recommendation. Or you can just stick with the web hosting company that you already have. My recommendation, again, and I've said this several times, is 15daysofjquery.com/hosting. And that will give you the same web hosting provider that I'm using for this demo. So the demonstration website that I'm using is jbdemo.com. And that's really not important, but I'm just going to tell you that in case you see some references to JBDemo. So I'm scrolling down to where I see databases, and what I want to do is you set up MySQL databases. So I've clicked that link, and hopefully the page is going to come up here pretty soon. Okay, so here we are. We've got the page set up where I can create a new database. So as I mentioned before, what you want to do is you want to open up a notepad document or something where you can jot down the details of the name of the database, your username, and your password. And also the host. If your web hosting provider doesn't use localhost, if they use some other host, then you need that too. So you need 4 bits of information. So let's go through this. Let's create a new database. So I'll just call this demo, and I'll hit create database. So it added the database demo. So let's go back. Now, the way that my web server is set up, I would actually be wrong if I said that the database name is demo. It's actually my username for the main account. So I'll go ahead and give that out as jbde_demo. So this is the username part _demo, and I'll show you how if I didn't know that just from having done this so many times, I'll show you how you would know that. But let's go ahead and move forward. The important thing is that you're writing this information down somewhere. Alright, so new database. Now I need a new user. And these are the users that I currently have set up. So add a new user. That's this right here. So I'm going to choose a username and password. Let's do demo and demo ABC. I have to type that again, demo ABC. So I will let's see here, I want to create the user. Added user demo with password demo ABC. So we need to add that information in. User demo pass demo ABC. So far so good. The last bit of information I need to know is the host. I happen to know that that is localhost, but again, I'll show you how you would know that. Now the user, again, is going to be my username for the main account, and then the password is just left the same. Now let me show you how I would know that. Let me go back. Now remember the step that most people forget. Most people will create a database, they'll create a user, and then they think that they're done. Well, you're not. What you have to do is you have to actually add a user to the database. This is the last step. So I have to find the user that I just created, find the database, and now I'm going to click Add. And I'm still not done. I have to choose. I can either choose from the menu of privileges, or I'm just going to do the simple thing and choose all privileges. Now look at this. It says user, excuse me, and it gives the full username. So notice it says JBDE_demo. It's not demo. And the database, similarly, is JBDE_demo. So however your web hosting company sets it up is the way that you should use it, but they usually give you that information when you're setting this up. So I'm going to choose all privileges just to make it easy. I'm going to choose, click the button that says Make Changes. Okay, so again, it gives me that information. The user JBDE_demo was added to the database JBDE_demo. So I just want to double check that I have the correct information, and I do. So let's go back. Now, how did I know that it was localhost for the host? Let's see here. There is. They used to show. I might not be able to show you. They used to show the PHP code for setting this up. Let me see what happens if I click this. Nope, that didn't work. Alright, unfortunately I'm using a newer version of cPanel and it doesn't show the PHP code. It used to show the PHP code. It really doesn't matter. What you need to know is you need to ask your web hosting provider whether it's localhost. 9 out of 10 times it's localhost. And when I set up the config file, this will make a lot more sense. So what we've done, just to recap, I logged into the account, I created a database, I created a username, I created a password for that username. And then I connected the database to the user and gave that user all privileges to the database. So now I have all this information stored away in a text file. I can print this out, but this is the information that I'm going to add to the config file once I upload all the files and populate the database. What I'm going to do is add that information to the config file, and that will help my PHP code talk to the database that's on the server. And this will all make sense as you watch me walk through this step by step. And that's why I do these video tutorials, so that you can see exactly what I'm doing, you can understand and hear why I'm doing it. Now for some of you, this is very basic stuff and you've done it a million times, just as I have. For some of you, this is the first time you're doing it, so I want to be able to give you the confidence to go ahead and do this on your own web server. Okay, so once you've set up your database, now what you want to do is you need to upload your files. So whatever FTP software you're using, you need to open that up and create a new account. As you can see from the PowerPoint slide, I recommend FileZilla, but use whatever you want. FTP software comes in all sorts of different shapes, sizes, and flavors, so whatever works best for you, that's great. Open it up, create a new account, and plug in the information that your web hosting company has provided you. If you have ever set up a web hosting account before, if you've ever uploaded a file using FTP software, then this is old hat, okay? But I just have to go through it because somewhere along the line someone's going to come along who has never done this before, and that's fine. Everybody has to do this their first time. There's a first time for everyone. So once you create that new account using the information your web hosting company provided to you, you hit the connect button. That will connect you to your web server. I'm going to show you how to create a new directory. It's extremely easy. And then you're going to watch me click, drag, and drop my demonstration files that you have, same files. You're going to highlight them all, click, drag, and then drop them onto the new directory that you're going to create. And this is really no different than copying a file from one folder on your hard drive to another folder. It's really the same process. It's very easy. So this is the point in the video where I break away from the PowerPoint and I show you exactly how to do this. So let's go ahead and flip on over to the screen where I show you step by step how to upload files to your web server. So I've reduced the screen size of FileZilla so it'll fit into the viewing window, but this is basically what it looks like. Now, depending on your latest version of FileZilla, it may look slightly different. It also comes with different themes, but the important thing, whether you're using FileZilla, FireFTP, or Qt FTP or WinFTP. There's about a bazillion different types of FTP software packages out there. Whatever it is, the process is basically the same. You need to create an account and then connect to it so that the FTP software sends a host, username, and password over to the server, and if everything is correct, it will grant you access to the files and directories on your server. And then what you can do is you can use the software to click, drag, and drop files onto this area right here, and that will give you the ability to very easily upload the files to your web server. So let's go ahead and get started. This will make a lot more sense. Using FileZilla, over in this corner right here, there's a button that you can click that gives you access to the site manager, and this is where you would add in this information. You'd add in a host, a user, and a password. So you would type in the information. So let's go ahead and start. So let's do a new site. So right here I need to type in the name of this site, and so I would do let's do JB demo DVD, and now I need to go and add host. So it might be, depending on your web hosting provider, you're going to use the information that they sent to you. Anytime that you sign up with a new web hosting provider, they're going to send you the login information. Now, it may take 48 hours for your account to go live, but as soon as it goes live, you'll be able to log in using the information they send you by email. So let's say that it's ftp.yoursite.com. Now, what you need to do is change the logon type from anonymous to normal, and that gives you the ability to add in username and password details. So then you would type in your actual username, and type in your actual password. And then what you would do is at the bottom click on connect or OK. I like to choose connect because that does a save and connect at the same time. Now I already have the information for my site set up, so I'll just go over to the JB demo section. Okay, now let me expand this window and show you that actually I'm going to shrink this back down. This section right here, and everything's shrunken down a little bit. This section is your computer, and then this section is the web server. So let me expand it back. So this is your computer right here. This is the web server, and it works pretty much the same way as anything else. What you want to do, meaning that last sentence meant that you can double click on a directory and it's going to open it up and show you the files inside of it. Okay, so a folder is a directory. So a lot of web servers are set up so that the HTML files, the files that make up the viewable part of your web page, are in a directory called public HTML. So what you want to do is double click on public HTML, and that will open up a whole bunch of files here. Files, directories, so these are what files will look like, and these are folders or directories, however you want to call them. So what you want to do is you want to right click and choose create directory, and this will give us the ability to just type a name of a new folder. Now you don't want to use spaces, but anything, well, I should say you don't want to use any funny characters. You basically want to stick to letters and underscores, possibly dashes, but I like to use underscores. So let's use, I'm going to do 15 days DVD. Okay, now this directory may be gone by the time that you watch this, but I just want to show you how easy it is to set this up. So we got 15 days DVD. I double click, open this up, and you see that there's nothing in here. It says empty directory listing. Well, that's great because this is the part where I'm going to highlight all of these files. These are the files that you're going to download from me and then unzip or extract to your hard drive. Okay, so you've got this folder open and you've minimized it a little bit so that you can see both of these windows at the same time. Now what we're going to do, you're going to watch me click right here, hold it down, click, drag, and drop this right here. And that's going to start the upload process. Here we go. So it gives you the indication that I can move this, and then I'm going to drop it, and you're going to see that the files start to appear up on the web server. So that's it. That's the process of uploading these files to the web server. Okay, so now we have the files on the web server. We've got our database set up. What we have to do now is change one of the files that come with my demonstration files so that the PHP code that I've already written for you will be able to connect to your database using the information that you've used to set up your database. So, in other words, you've set up your database, you've got a username, you've got a password. Well, now you need to tell my PHP code or your PHP code how to what those details are, so that it can actually connect to your database. We're going to store that information in the database. You're going to save the file, and then you're going to watch me click, drag, and drop that new config file, which has all the new ingredients for logging into your database. Click, drag, and drop that onto the old one, which is on your server. And then when it says, hey, do you want to overwrite this? I see that you're making a copy here. You're going to choose yes. So that's going to delete the old file, replace it with a new file. And if you've copied the exact username, password, and database info, everything should just work great. So let me go ahead and break away from the PowerPoint presentation and show you exactly how to do that. Now what I want to show you is I'm going to show you how to set up the config file. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to the files that you've downloaded from me and you've extracted to your hard drive. And you want to find this file called config.php. Right click, and I would choose to edit it with Notepad++. You can edit it with your own code editor, whatever you're using. But if you don't have a code editor, I highly recommend Notepad++. So let's open this up, and I'll resize this down so we can take a look at it. Now, some of the things that I like about Notepad++ is that you have these numbered lines, so that makes it very easy when there's a PHP error. You can go back, it'll sometimes tell you what line number the error was on. You can go back and find it very easily, whereas regular old Notepad doesn't show that. There are some other features that we'll get into later. But you can use Notepad, just don't use Word or WordPad. Alright, so you see that there's a spot for 4 bits of information. Well, these are the 4 bits of information that we stored, or we copied and pasted for when we were setting up our database. We've got database, user, pass, and host. So the host is a local host. So for the user, what I want to do is set up, so I need to copy and paste that in. The pass is going to be this. So copying and pasting makes it very, very easy to get it right the first time, so you don't have to get frustrated and curse at your computer screen. Alright, so once those are good, once we've copied and pasted all that information in there and we're ready to save it, you're going to notice that this is turned red. That means it's ready to be saved. It has not been saved, and once I save it, the color of this will change to blue. So I can hit File, Save, and I'll do that. Or I could hit Control S. Control S is a shortcut for save, and you'll notice that the color here has changed. Alright, so I saved that, but it's on my local machine, so that's not going to do me any good until I upload it to the web server. So let's go ahead and do that. Very simple. Here's the file that I changed. I had originally double-clicked on this, or actually I right-clicked and chose Edit with Notepad++. So once I've saved that, it's ready to be uploaded. Here's the version on my web server. So if I can see both config.php here and config.php here, all I have to do is click, drag, and drop. And I don't have to drop it right on top of it, just somewhere out here. And a lot of times it will ask you, do you want to overwrite, and you want to choose yes. And that's it. And the last step is to upload the demonstration data. So not only am I giving you the files and the JavaScript, PHP code, and all of those great things, but I'm also going to give you the data, the demonstration data, so you can follow along. So it's going to make it much, much easier for you to do exactly what I'm showing you in the tutorials. So I've gone and I've pulled some free, it's not open source, what is it? Copyright free. There's a word that I'm missing right now, but anyways, it's copyright free data. Public domain, that's the word, public domain data, and I've grabbed it off of the web, I've formatted it so that it's in a much more user-friendly format, so you can copy and paste that. And I'm going to use a tool called PHP MyAdmin. This is a web-based tool that most web hosting companies provide. And again, if your web hosting company does not provide this, then you can go to 15daysofjquery.com/hosting, and I'll send you out to a web hosting company that provides all that and more. But your web hosting company probably already has this. So you're going to watch me use PHP MyAdmin, and if you've got that tool, then I'll show you that it is as easy as copying and pasting. Once you see exactly where you need to paste this info, hit the save button, and the data is populated into the database, and we can be off and running. So Later on in the videos, I will show you where to get similar data, public domain data that's copyright free. So that'll be very handy when you want to set up your own web-based applications. And it's just really just to give you ideas about where to find similar types of data. But right now, this is the part where I stop the PowerPoint presentation, and you're going to watch over my shoulder as I show you how to use PHPMyAdmin to upload the demonstration data into your database. Since I've already created the database, the user, and connected the user to the database, we are all set to go, except we need to add the demonstration data that I have prepared for you. I need to help you walk through how to add that to the database. So first we need to be able to open up a tool, a web-based tool called PHPMyAdmin. So what you want to do is go back to the main page of your control panel and scroll down, and there should be, depending on what type of control panel you have, hopefully there's a link to manage your database, or it might actually just say PHPMyAdmin. If so, click that link, and that will take you into the web-based admin tool called PHPMyAdmin. And what you want to do is look for the database that you've created. Now what I need to do is, I believe I need to delete the database info that's already in here. So let me go ahead and delete this info. Just ignore this for a second here. Okay, so you're going to have a blank database. Now what you want to do is you want to be able to go in and click on SQL or SQL. Click SQL, and this will give you a text area where you can copy and paste some information in. Now what are you going to copy and paste there? Well, what you do is you go over to the files that you've downloaded from me and that you unzipped, and you want to open up censusdata.txt, and this will open up a file that looks like so. And all you have to do is click somewhere in here, choose select all. That was a right click, choose select all, right click, copy, and let's go back over to our web page and right click and paste it in. And now we hit, let me slide this over. Once we're ready, I'm going to hit the go button. And hopefully it says your SQL query has been executed successfully. And if you look over here, you've got Florida counties. If I click on this, we've got 67 rows, and it's broken out by year. So this is there's data in this database now, so we're ready to use that. So that's how simple it is using PHPMyAdmin to upload the demonstration data that I've already prepared for you, so you can follow along with these tutorials. So now that we've got the uploading of the files and the database stuff out of the way, now it's time to get in and get our hands dirty with some of these demonstration files and really start to learn what it is that we're doing with the PHP code, what it is, how we can set up the Ajax, and really get into the code so you can learn how to create a web application. So let's go ahead and get started. As you can see, I've got Mozilla Firefox open, and the cursor is waiting for me to type something in here. So what I'm going to do is type in my demo database, jbdemo.com / I need to do / what was it, 15 days DVD, and let's see what that does. Okay, that gives me a directory listing. Now your web server may not let you do that. A lot of web servers are set up to not allow this to happen. In other words, this directory listing here, a lot of times they'll say directory listing denied, and that's okay. My web server is set up so that I can actually just look at all of this information, because there's no index.php or index.html file. Now let's say that yours is set up so that you can't just click on one of these by going to the main directory like so. What you want to do is go to your website, .com or .net / the folder or directory is the correct way to say that. The directory that you created and installed these files in / demo.php. Okay, so take a look at that. Your website / the directory you created where you installed my files / demo.php, and then just hit go or enter, return. Alright, so what we're looking at is a very simple HTML form. So we've got we can choose a county, and this is pulling information out of the database and instantly populating it. So this is information. So obviously I shouldn't say obviously, not so obviously, it is correctly connecting to the database. So I don't see any errors on the page, and the fact that there is drop-down information means that the config file that I set up is set up correctly. It's pulling this information out of the database. And then I can choose the year, and then I can hit Get Population Data. Now what this is going to do when I hit Get Population Data is it's going to post the form over to a PHP file that is going to pull some more information out of the database based on what I choose here and here. But this is not Ajax. This is just the demo.php is to show you the starting point, to show you where we start off, so that as this evolves file by file and tutorial by tutorial, you'll see that we're taking a very simple and rudimentary PHP form, some PHP code, and then we're changing it and evolving it to a more complex web application. So let me go ahead and stop talking and go ahead and click Get Population Data. And so it says the 2002 population estimate for Duval County is 801,793. So if I were to change this to Baker County and choose 2003, it should give me the correct information. 2003 population estimate for Baker County. Alright, so this is not, and this, by the way, it's posting to a page called results.php. Alright, now let's go and take a look at what we have here. I'm just going to give you a very quick walkthrough, and forgive me if I'm covering ground that you already are familiar with, but some people are not going to be that familiar with PHP code. So I'm looking at demo.php. This is our first demonstration. Okay, include class.db.php. This means it's grabbing a library that does the database connections. Include config.php. That's telling the PHP code. By the way, this is the beginning of PHP. It's telling the PHP code to go grab the config file so it can connect to the database. And this is where it sets up the new class, connects to the database. Now, I have to warn you, if some of what I've talked about so far is just shot right over your head, I'm not going to be able to cover PHP 101 or 102. I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible, but one of the reasons why I've included all of these demonstration PHP tutorial files is so that you can follow along. It's not like I'm telling you, okay, write some code to connect to the database. I've written the code for you. You may not understand step by step exactly how the PHP code is working and why is there an arrow here. That's okay. There's only so much ground that we can cover, and I want to be able to jump right into the building of the Ajax Web Application. So forgive me, but I'm going to have to jump past some of the basic PHP information. I'll try to cover as much as I can, but at the same time, I've got to jump in and be able to start talking about the Ajax part of it. Okay, so we're connecting to the database, and it's saying select the information from the database and show it in this drop-down. So it's generating HTML right here, and here's our actual HTML. This is where the HTML starts. Alright, so there's really nothing fancy going on with JavaScript. There's no JavaScript being used at all. All we have are two basic style sheets being used here. Over on the results.php side, let me show you that to you here. Results.php is right here. Okay, so results.php, this is again grabbing the PHP database class, the config file, and then it's grabbing the information. So it's grabbing the year, and it's grabbing, yeah, there you go. It's grabbing the year, and it's showing the information for the selected county. So and then it's formatting it into HTML and sending that information to the browser. So if you want to go back, let's take a quick second look. Here's what's happening. All this information is pulled out of the database, and then I can submit the form, and we go to results.php, and it grabs the information out of the database and it shows it right here. So the big thing to understand is that demo.php does not have any JavaScript whatsoever. This is our starting point. The other thing that's very important to understand is that as I go through these tutorials, we're going to add layers and layers and layers of additional JavaScript code, step by step, and it's going to get more and more and more advanced. And I'm going to walk you through this one step at a time, but no matter what we do as we go through this, I'm going to set it up so that at any time, if someone were to come to this website, this web page, and not have JavaScript turned on, that they would still be able to, or if there was a JavaScript error on the page, they would still be able to use the form, use the web application, and that's good practice. That's a good practice to follow, just so that everyone who comes to your website will be able to see what you're doing and get the data, even if it's not as user-friendly as you would like it to be. The nirvana is to be able to show the Ajax Web Application to everyone who has JavaScript enabled, which is 95% of the people out there. But for the small fraction of people who don't have it turned on, they'll still be able to use your web page. Now that we got the first demonstration out of the way, let's go ahead and go to the second demonstration, and let me show you how to get there. We're at the website where we did demo.php, so I'm just going to type demo2.php and hit go. And at first glance, nothing has changed, and to a large degree, not much has changed. We've still got our form. We can choose information out of the database. Now here's where it's different. When I click Get Population Data, watch what happens. And before I click this, I'm going to move this up. I'm going to click Get Population Data. Here we go. So as you notice, there was an image that flashed on the screen for a second. It was an image that indicated that something was processing. And this is a very makes it a lot easier for someone visiting your web page to understand that some activity is going on, because with an Ajax Web Application, the hallmark of an Ajax Web Application is that there's no page refresh. It's not like the screen goes blank for a second while it goes to another page. That's the whole benefit that's the whole idea behind an Ajax Web Application. You stay on this page, but it's grabbing data out of the database, and sometimes that takes a split second or two. So you want to show the user some sort of image, a spinning clock, or something that indicates activities going on, and then it pulls the information in and it gives it right here. So let's try this again. So I can go to Baker County and choose 2001, hit Get Population Data, and there you go. It automatically updates it to have the information 2001 population estimate for Baker County. Now again, this is not an extremely complex Ajax application, but this is the second demonstration, and this is a big step forward from the generic choose your information and then post it over demo.php, where we're leaving one page and going to page B. This is an Ajax application, even though it's relatively simple and straightforward. So let me go ahead and show you what's going on behind the scenes. What we're going to do is open up demo2.php, and again I'm using Notepad++. So the same stuff as before. In other words, a lot of this code you'll see in demo.php. All of this right here, all of this is just to create the form in order to populate the drop-down list, and for both the county and for the dates. That's all it does. So let's go ahead and move forward. We've got the style sheets right here, which just makes the form look pretty, and this is where things start to get interesting. Alright, here we have script type equals text JavaScript, and then what I'm doing is I'm grabbing the latest jQuery code, and I'm grabbing it from the jQuery.com website. Now under the most ideal situation, you would have the latest version of jQuery on your web server, and you would not be grabbing it remotely from the jQuery server. But I wanted to be able to distribute the files to you so that no matter when you are watching this, you would have the latest version of jQuery. So that's why I did it this way. Okay, and then I'm using a plugin that adds some functionality to the jQuery library. Now jQuery is great because it has these plugins. In other words, other developers, folks like me, have spent their time and energy to create plugins that you can use with jQuery. They're built to be used with jQuery to add extra functionality so that you don't have to write something from scratch. So it really takes a great JavaScript library called jQuery and makes it even more powerful. But none of this really makes sense until I start to show you exactly what's going on. Okay, again, all this HTML, it's the same as was in demo.php. When you get towards the bottom of the page, this is where things change. We've got an opening script tag, and we've got down here we've got a closing script tag, and everything from this point up all the way to this point right here down, that's all new information. So let's walk through this step by step. What we have is document ready function. So when you look at this is waiting for the entire page to load up. There are some things that you don't want to have happen. It just won't function properly unless the browser has been able to load up the entire page. So you want to wait until the DOM is ready, and that's what that function does. So once the page is loaded, then we start in on some JavaScript. So let's look at what's going on. We're setting up a variable called options, and I'll go through this in a little bit, but basically we're setting up, this is like a mini configuration for the Ajax form. The Ajax form that you see right here is loading options, okay, and that's this information right here. So the information that you set in options is being put right here, and then as you see in the information, it's binding it to something with an ID, that's the # ID of county form. So if I scroll up, you'll see that we have form action, and this is just plain old HTML, but it happens to have an ID called county form. So what this is doing is it's hijacking the action that you would normally expect on the contact form. So rather than normally what it would do is submit it to the results page, as you saw in demo.php. But because we've targeted it with this ID using JavaScript language, and if some of this is confusing, go to 15daysofjquery.com, and I cover this in much greater detail. But this says grab whatever has this ID and use the Ajax form plugin, and then use these options right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to target, once the Ajax happens, we're targeting something with an ID of target div. Let's see if we have something set up. We do. We have a div that's just sitting there with no information in it called target div. So it's waiting for some info to go. The Ajax info is going to go right there between the opening div tag and the closing div tag. Now before it sends that information over to our PHP page to process the information, it's going to run through this JavaScript function, and when it comes back on success, it's going to go through this, send the data through that JavaScript function. So here we go. If you notice, we've got show request right here. That's that function right there. And all it's doing is it's adding an extra variable. So it's taking what the Ajax form plugin does is it goes through the form. It goes through everything that you see right here, and it grabs all of the field values. It compiles them, and then it I've told it to add an extra one that does not exist in the form. So I'm saying essentially create a new form field, or send over an extra name value pair, name of Ajax value of 1. So that's adding that to the information before it sends it over. That's what's going on there. And then when it comes back, it's not really doing anything. As you can see, Notepad++ puts the information, anything that's in smaller text, green like this, and a little bit italicized, that is information that is just these are just notes. So nothing is being executed here. All right, and the last little bit of information is that there's an ID of loading, and within that div there's an image, and that would be this up here. This is our loading image that comes with the files. And I've used through the cascading style sheets, I've set that to be hidden when the page first loads. So it says when the Ajax magic starts to happen, we want to show it. We want to show this image. When the Ajax information comes back, we want to hide it. So this is a way to give our visitors information, a visual cue that says there's some activity going on, don't leave the page, something's happening. And this is very, very useful, especially if your web server is running a little bit slower than normal. So this tells your visitor there's something going on, sit tight, some information's coming back. So let's take another look. So I can change information to Dixie County, change the year, hit get population data, and you notice it's sitting and thinking for a while, and I don't know why it's taking so long. Okay, but it finally came back. So that was a perfect example. What great timing. That was a perfect example where, for whatever reason, my web server was taking a little bit longer than normal, and finally the information came back. So we have 2003 population estimate for Dixie County. So all it's doing is it's grabbing this information, and let me see where it's posting this. Okay, it's posting it to results2.php, which is very similar to results.php, but it's slightly different. But it's really grabbing the same information out of there. So that's a very in-depth examination of what's going on with demo2.php. Now we're talking about demo 3, and demo 3 is found very simply by just going to demo3.php on your website. So change demo 2 to demo 3, and this one also has no JavaScript. There's no JavaScript going on. So let me show you what this does. It's grabbing information out of the database and giving you a choice of choose a population growth target. So you can choose anything from a 5% increase to greater than 50% increase. So this, in other words, the whole function here, the whole idea behind this is that we have database information, and let's say that the web app that we were creating, the web application, the goal was to give folks information that showed them the population growth for different counties in the state of Florida. Now that may not sound very sexy to you, but the point is that you can, I had to use some data set, so this is the one that I chose. But you can use whatever data that you have in a database, and you can massage it however you want. This is just an example. So let's choose greater than 35%. Actually, let's choose something less. Let's choose 25% increase. And then I'll click Get Population Data. Now, before I do that, let me just remind you, this is not an Ajax-powered page. Demo 3 is a different way to show the same data out of the database. So I'll click Get Population Data, and it posts to a new page, and this is posting to results3.php. And we've got 4 counties with growth greater than 25%. We've got Flagler County, Lake County. You can read the rest. Let me go back, click the back button, and I'll choose 30% increase. So now we've got 3 counties. So as we ratchet this up, let's go to 40%. Okay, so finally we get to 1 county with growth greater than 40%. And I believe that's over the time frame of 2001 to whatever the highest number is. This will make more sense as we go through the rest of the demonstrations. But I wanted to show you that this has no JavaScript. Let me go ahead and go to Demo 4 and give you a sneak peek of what's in store for us. Demo4.php. Okay, choose population growth target. So as soon as I change the drop-down, it's grabbing JavaScript through Ajax. It's sending the information over to a PHP page, and it's sending this info back right here, and giving you an idea of how many counties have growth greater than 50%, 15%, or whatever you've chosen. Let's ratchet up to 25%. Okay, 4 counties. So the reason why this is handy is because this will tell your visitor how many results that they can expect before they submit the information. I can't tell you how many times someone will have a search field or search form on their page, and you fill out all this information, and you're going to narrow down the query. You know, I want to search the database for this and this and this. Only these data sets. You hit go, and it goes to this other page and says, sorry, nothing was found. And then you got to go back and change all the information, sometimes fill in information again. And it would be so nice to be able to know ahead of time, okay, well, how much does that, how many results are going to be returned to me? You don't have to show me the details, just how many results are going to be shown to me. And that's what this is doing. So if I do 10% increase, it can say 35 counties with growth greater than 10%. If you want to see the details, then all I have to do is click here, and it takes us over to the page. So this is actually still taking us to results3.php, but the Ajax part of it is that it's telling us beforehand, here's how many results that you can expect. So that's where the usability comes in. So what I'm going to do is pause the video, and then what I'll do is I'll go in the next chapter, I'll go into more detail about how we make this magic happen for Demo 4. At the end of the last tutorial, I gave you a preview of this one, the demo4.php. So currently we're at demo4.php. Let me just show you real quickly what this one does, just so that we're all on the same page. As soon as I change this drop-down field, through Ajax, it's querying the database, it's sending info to a PHP page, grabs the information out of the database and sends it back, at which point we take those details and say however many counties it is with growth greater than 20%. So that number is specific to whatever is chosen in the drop-down. So if I were to choose 30%, it's going to say 3 counties with growth greater than 30%. When I click Get Details, it actually submits the form over to the results3.php page in this case. So that functionality is not Ajax powered. The Ajax powered feature of Demo 4 is that it tells your visitor before they request the details, it tells them how many results they can expect to get. That's very, very useful information. So how do we do that? Well, I've opened up demo4.php in Notepad++. So what we've got here is just the information that's going to generate the drop-down choices in the HTML. And let me go ahead and show you that if you ever wanted to see what sort of HTML is being generated, it's very, very easy. You can just right-click and choose View Page Source. And as you can see, this is just regular old HTML, nothing terribly fancy here. The reason why I'm using PHP to do it is because we're grabbing this information out of a database. There's no reason why you couldn't use HTML for the front end of your web-based Ajax application. There's no reason why you can't do that. Now the part that grabs information out of the database, the results3.php in this case, that is going to have to be some sort of server-side code. It's going to have to be something that has the intelligence, has the code within it to tell the server, grab information from the database before we send results to the browser. But you don't have to use PHP. You could use Cold Fusion, you could use ASP. There's a whole bunch of different types of languages that you could use. Alright, so all we're using right here is we're not even using the plugin for the form plugin for jQuery. All we're using is the latest version of jQuery. It's a very powerful library. So let me show you what's going on here. Down towards the bottom we have our friend document ready, which waits for the page to load, and then everything within this bracket right here to right here. That's a great feature of Notepad++. See how this one is red and this one is red? That means that shows you where the beginning bracket is and the closing bracket. So everything that's in here waits for the page to load. So not a whole lot of code is being used here, but let's see what we're doing. Alright, so my code, my JavaScript code written with jQuery syntax, is looking for a form with ID of county form. And if you scroll up to the HTML, you would expect that my form has the ID of county form, and it does. So let's scroll back down. So the main form on our page with an ID of county form, look for field set. And that would be this right here. And you can see right where it ends. And what it does first is it appends or adds to the field set. It adds div ID equals target div. So I've done this a little bit differently. So rather than putting target div in, so this div does not exist until jQuery comes along and adds it. So it's not in the HTML as you would see in demo.php or demo2.php. So jQuery adds this div. All right, let me scroll over here, and I just add on to this. So the find function in jQuery means, okay, great, you found form, you found count with an ID of counting form, you found the field set. If I use find, that means, okay, now move on to the next thing, but it has to be within that field set. That was the last thing that we chose. Find a select field with an ID of growth. So let's take a look. Let's go back to our HTML here. And sure enough, we have a select with an ID of growth right here. So let's scroll back down. So that's what it's targeting. So it says, when that changes, fire off this function. So let's look at what happens inside this function. Okay, so we're using a function. We're using inside of that function, we're using the Ajax syntax inside of jQuery. So the jQuery library gives us the ability to use $Ajax. And as you can see from the color coding put on the screen by Notepad++, this is all the information that happens within the Ajax call. So we're posting the data, we're posting it to rowcount.php. So this is a PHP file that is just going to return the number of results that someone could expect. And we're going to send over growth equals whatever the value of this select field happens to be. Success, when this comes back successfully, fire off another function, and whatever the message is, whatever data comes back, we're going to put that inside of the div with an ID of target div. Well, that div does not exist until we create it right here. So a lot is going on at one time. What we're doing is we're emptying out the HTML. There's probably a better way for me to do that. I could use jQuery's empty call, and I'm appending some more HTML, and I'm putting the message right in between some paragraph tags. A lot's going on. So just to recap, look for the form with ID of counting form. Look for the field set inside of that. Add to that a div with ID of target div. So this is just basic old HTML here. Then once you've done that, find inside of that form and field set, find a select with an ID of growth, and change it. When it changes, fire off this function that sends information using jQuery's Ajax. Send it via post over to rowcount.php, and we're going to send it over as growth equals whatever that value is that we changed using the dropdown. And then when it comes back, fire off this function and basically put this HTML, put the message inside of paragraph tags, and put that inside of the target div that we just created. And that is a mouthful. All right, so that's what's going on. In the next chapter, what I'm going to show you is I'm going to stick on demo4.php, and I'm going to show you how you can see exactly what's going on behind the scenes using some of the Firefox add-ons that I previously recommended that you use. Stick with me on demo4.php for just a little bit longer, because I want to show you some of the tools that will help you decipher what's going on with your page and show you some of the magic that's going on behind the scenes. So let's go ahead and take a look here. Alright, so we're at demo4.php. I'm using the Firefox browser, and I have some add-ons up here. This row of information, or row of buttons I should say, is the web developer add-on that I've previously added to Firefox. Let me show you what's going on at the bottom of the screen. I have some funny things at the bottom of the screen, including a monkey head, but over here I have something called Firebug. So this little cockroach looking thing, if I click on it, it opens up another page where I can take a look at what's going on behind the scenes. And I use probably about 5 to 10% of what Firebug has to offer. It is a very, very powerful web development tool for JavaScript programmers. It's extremely useful, and I'll show you exactly how to use it and what's going on. But let me close this down and show you in Demo 4, one of the things that's happening, and let me go ahead and refresh the page. In Demo 4, one of the things that's happening is as soon as the page loads, we're using jQuery to add a div with an ID called target div. So let me just right click and choose View Page Source. And again, this is even though it's a PHP page, it's just regular old HTML. Now, I'll let you do this on your own time, but I'm going to show you that for demo4.php, if you just view the HTML, there's lots of JavaScript in here, but there is no div with an ID of target div. It does not exist. It's not in there. But what you can do using the tools, I might have to expand this out here. Let me see. Yep. All right. Shoot. How am I going to do this? All right. Using the web developer. Here we go. Using the web developer tools, one of the things I can choose is I can click on the view source button. I could just view the source like I already did, or there's also this option. It says view generated source. So view generated source, what is that? Well, what that does is that says, okay, there's some JavaScript going on the page, or there might be some JavaScript adding some extra HTML at runtime. So let's go ahead and view the generated source. And sure enough, it is different. And you see that it's called the DOM source or DOM source of selection. And forgive me if I said it incorrectly. But you'll notice that there is a div with an ID of target div. So what happened was jQuery added that in as soon as the page loaded. That's completely so the generated source code is different than the HTML source code. And that may sound confusing, but it's just another way I'm showing you a way to use some of the tools that you can add to Firefox so you can see what's actually going on behind the scenes. All right, let me show you what Firebug does. Let me hit refresh here. Okay, with Firebug, what we can do is we can watch some of what's going on with the Ajax application. So let me go ahead and move this down, give ourselves plenty of room, and I'm going to click on the change here. Now notice what happened. There was a little spinning icon. It probably happened a little too fast for you to see, but it shows us that sure enough we're sending post variables over to a page called jbdemo.com 15 days DVD / row count, just as I showed you in the last chapter or tutorial. And if I click on this, I can scroll down to the bottom and it can say load response. So it will give me the option to say, well, what sort of information is it sending back? So it's sending back this information, 13 counties with growth greater than 20%. So the file rowcount.php is actually generating this whole sentence. So the PHP code grabs the information out of the database and formulates a sentence, and then the Ajax part of this web application grabs that text and puts that right here into the div that was created at runtime. So some very cool stuff going on. Let me show you, and you can click on the post to see that sure enough we are sending over a variable with the name of growth, and the value is 20. Well, what does 20 match up with? 20 matches up with what we chose here. So if I go back to Notepad++, let me open up row count. Where is row count? Here we go. Row count. Okay. I'm not going to be able to wade through all of this PHP, but basically it's connecting to the database, and let's see here. It's looking for, here we go. It's looking for a post variable called growth, which makes sense because in demo 4 we're telling it send over growth and assign it the value from the dropdown. So, and we're looking for an integer. So we take that information, put it into the variable safe growth, and then we go and grab the information from the database. And here's where the magic happens. We say echo means print this out to the browser, send it to the browser. However many rows there are, so let's say there are 13 rows. Counties with growth greater than whatever the growth is, and then put the percentage. So that's how rowcount.php is generating that information, and then our demo4.php page is taking through the Ajax functionality of jQuery. It's taking that information, that text, and popping it into the div with ID of target div, which, by the way, remember, did not exist until jQuery came along and made that happen. So I wanted to show you some of the tools so you can diagnose and dissect what's going on behind the scenes with your web-based application. We've come a long way from our first demo, demo.php, and we're currently at demo 5, but we have a long way to go, so let's get moving. As you can see up here, I'm on demo 5, and let me show you what this does, and then I'll explain exactly how it does it. So it looks similar to demo 4, and that makes sense. I want to take these one building block at a time and not make a huge leap. So demo 5 looks very similar, but it's actually a little bit different. So you notice that as soon as I change this, nothing happens. Well, let's click on Get Population Data. Now this alert box comes up and it says you're about to submit, and it shows me what sort of data is about to be sent over to some page. Now I could use Firebug, as I showed you in a previous tutorial. I could use Firebug to show exactly what sort of information is being sent over, what page it's going to, and what sort of information is being output and grabbed by the jQuery Ajax functionality and pulled back into the page. But let's just hit OK. And you saw that very quickly that there was that loading image, and then it says 13 counties with growth greater than 20%. So it's populating something on the page. There's probably a div here, and there is, but there's a div here, and it's adding that information back into the page. So in the last, if I go back to demo 4, I'm not going to do it, but if I were to go back, actually, heck, let's go back. Let's go back. All right, remember, with demo 4, it's showing me how many results to expect, but as soon as I click Get Details, it's actually taking me to a different page. It's taking me to a PHP page that outputs the information. If I want to change the info, I have to click the back button and get back to demo 4. Demo 5 is a little bit better in some regards. It doesn't show the information, it doesn't show me how many results I will get, but it displays all the details on the page. Now try to ignore the alert box. There's a reason why I put it there, but it's showing that information there. So now I can make a change. I don't have to click the back button, and the information will change right on the page. So we're getting closer and closer towards a very user-friendly web application. So let's go ahead and take a look at what's going on behind the scenes. I've gone ahead and opened up demo5.php in Notepad++. Again, everything here, this is just generating the drop-down list from the database, this PHP code, short PHP code. Now, notice that I'm using both the latest jQuery, and I've gone back to, I believe it was demo 2, we were using the jQuery form plugin, so I've got that going again as well. And so here we go. Here's our document ready function. So we're adding the target div. The div with ID of target div. We're adding that. We're adding that at runtime once the page loads. And then this is the same as, very similar to what you saw in demo 2. We're targeting this target div that we just added. Before we submit it, we're doing show request. On success, we're doing show response. And we're binding all of this information. These options that we set right here are being sent through the Ajax form plugin functionality. And I'm binding it to something with an ID of county form, and that would be our form. So the form in the HTML has an ID of county form. All right. So what happens is, before it sends over the information, it hits this function as we told it to. And what it's doing is it's adding in a name value pair. So I'm adding in Ajax with a value of 1. And then I merge that in to the form data, which is passed in here. So I'm merging that in, and I fire off this alert because I wanted you to be able to see here's what's being sent over. And I also wanted to show you, if you wanted to play with the data some more, here's a way that you could play with the data before it's sent over to the page with this jQuery functionality right here. All right, so let me go ahead and show you this again. Get population data. So this shows you all of the information that's being sent over to some page. And as you can see, we've got Ajax equals 1 right here. That Ajax equals 1 does not exist in the HTML. It's something that we add at runtime right here. All right. So when it comes back, nothing is being done. This is all just comments. Those are comments. But it's being added back into the target div. And where is this form being submitted? It's being submitted to results3.php. So really the biggest difference is there are two big differences between demo 4 and demo 5. Number one, we're not showing the number of results that will be returned before they click on that button to get the population data. But also, and probably equally as important, we are grabbing the information that normally in demo 4 we were sent to a page called results3.php that queried the database, grabbed the info, and showed us some text on the page. Now we're grabbing that information and we're putting it right here. We've created a div where we're going to target, so that information is coming back. Let me show you very quickly using Firebug what's going on here. So I have to go down and hit load response. So let's see what's being sent over. We're sending over get population data. Ajax is 1, growth is 20. And what's coming back is this HTML. So in other words, results3.php is generating this HTML. That's not being done with jQuery. That's being done with our PHP page. jQuery has just been being used to pull that HTML back into the page and is being injected back into this div with an ID of target div. So that's demo5.php. Demo 6 is going to pull demo 4 and demo 5, take the best of both and pull those together. So I'll show you that next. Okay, so now it's time to sign up for a Google Map API key. So what you do is you go to google.com and you type in Google Map API or Google Maps API. Either one will get you to the correct place. Let me go ahead and show you the URL just in case you want to type it in. It's code.google.com/APIs/maps. But again, Google's going to direct you very quickly and easily. If you just go to google.com, type in Google Maps API. So once you arrive at the Google Maps API main page, over on the right hand side you've got how do I start, and one of the first links is sign up for excuse me, a Google Maps API key. So let's go ahead and click that. And once you land on the page to sign up for the Google Maps API, they're going to ask you to log into your Google account. If you don't have a Google account, it's free. It's the same account that you could use to set up Gmail or any of the other free Google features. But Gmail is very popular. If you don't have it already, I highly recommend it. But even if you don't use Gmail and you just want to sign up for the free account, that's fine. It's this is a free service. Now I will give you an important tip. After you click that you've read the terms and conditions and go ahead and read those, then what you want to do is you want to register your main domain. So for example, in mine I'm going to do www.jbdemo.com. Okay, so that will give me the ability to do jbdemo.com/maps or jbdemo.com/Google Map. Whatever it is, as long as it's within jbdemo.com, then everything should work fine. Where you might need to register another key would be if you did something like a subdomain, like if you did map.jbdemo.com. So what I recommend is just to keep things simple. You just do the main domain name, www.yourwebsite.com or whatever your URL is. Then you hit Generate API Key. And as you can see, Google's asking for me to log into my Google account, so I'll go ahead and pause the video and do that. And then when I hit play again or hit record, I'll show you what the Google Map API key looks like. And this is what an API key looks like, and it says this is good for all URLs in this directory, and it gives you some example web page code to use. So what I want to do is highlight. I'll right click and choose copy, and then I'll open up a notepad document, right click and choose paste, and I'll save that as Google Map API.txt, so I have that for future reference. But what I really want is the script source right here. So this is what's going to give us the ability to pull in the Google map code. You see the source right here. It says source equals http://maps.google.com, and then all the rest of this is just the Google API key once again. So it's already putting our Google API key into the source code. So when it goes to Google server and requests the Google map, it's sending your key to Google. Google verifies it, and then it sends the information back. So what I want to do now is go back over to Notepad and give myself some room right here, and I'm in file number demo 10, and so this is where you would go and paste this in before the closing head tag where all the rest of your JavaScript is. So this would be the place where you want to add it right here. So I'll right click and choose paste, and I just want to make sure that this is all on one line. And so there we go. So then what I'll do is I'll save that and I'll upload that to the server, and we should be off and running. So that's how you go and grab the Google Map API key, how you generate a key for yourself, save it to a text file, and then grab the script source code, and I'll show that to you again. That's everything from here to here, and you want to copy and paste that into your actual HTML or PHP as it is, and then save that file and upload it to your web server. As I mentioned at the end of the last tutorial, Demo 6, which you see right here, Demo 6 is the best of both worlds from Demo 4 and Demo 5. Let's combine them together, and let me show you what we get. Okay, as soon as I make the change, as you saw in Demo 4, the loading image comes up, and it shows me how many results to expect, which is very handy. But as soon as I click Get Details, I'm not going to another page. It's going to actually send the information over to a PHP page, and whatever the value is, whatever text is generated from that database query, it's going to remove this line right here and put all of that text right here. So there you go, 4 counties with growth greater than 25%. So I can change it to 15%. And it says there's going to be 16 counties, so it shows me how many results I should expect. Well, what are those details? Here you go. It's all these counties. So again, I can use Firebug to show you exactly what's going on. And you can actually see this in action. Watch this screen down here as I make these changes. It shows you how long the change took, and at first it goes to rowcount.php to show how many results are going to be generated. And then when I click Get Details, watch down below. It shows you in 178 milliseconds it grabbed the information from results3.php. Now, I'll go ahead and show you what's going on, but it's really just the combination of 4 and 5 put together. So let's take a look. Demo 6. Okay, again, the first little bit of PHP is just generating the drop-down field. We've got a form with an ID of county form, and that's very important. And so here's our document ready function. Here's where things start. So we're adding this div with an ID of target div. That's going to be our container where the results are going to go. And we're setting the options. We're sending that in through the Ajax form, the form plugin for jQuery. When the information comes back, actually what we're doing is we're adding in Ajax equals 1 before we send the information over, and we're not setting up that alert box on the page. That was just for Demo 5. So we're just adding Ajax equals 1 to the end of whatever our form, however our form is filled out, and then we're sending it over to, I believe it's going to be results3.php. Yep, results3. And then the information comes back, and we're adding this in. Actually, let's see here. Yep. Okay. This is being targeted. Here's how this is happening. The form plugin automatically targets, I've shown you this several times before, is targeting this target div, which is, it's created here, and then when it comes back, it's populated here. Alright, so how is the dropdown happening? Well, that's straight out of Demo 4. We're grabbing the form with ID of county form, looking for a field set. I'm actually adding target div twice, which is a mistake. I don't need to do that. So I actually can remove that out. That was a mistake. My bad. But what we want to do is we want to find a select select field with an ID of growth, and when it changes, we're going to fire off this function. This is straight out of demo 4. Fire off this function, use the Ajax feature of jQuery, post this information over to rowcount.php, data equals whatever the value is of that drop-down select field. And then when it comes back, this is just going to be HTML that we're going to put into the target div. And then while the Ajax is firing, we're going to show the image. When it stops, we're going to hide it. And that's basically how demo6.php works. Okay, when I jump into demo 7, I want to show you something called JSON. JSON is a very useful, convenient, efficient way for your Ajax-powered application, your web-based application, to communicate with the database using PHP or some other server-side script, to communicate with the database and send that information back. Now, before I show you the power of JSON, I have to show you how things, I have to really hammer home how things are currently being generated up to this point. So I'm looking at results3.php. Okay, and what's going on here, this is PHP code that is connecting to the database. It's looking for some information being sent over, so it's looking for growth equals something. Alright, and it's grabbing that information out of the database. And then what it's doing is it's echoing or sending to the browser HTML. So that if you're familiar with HTML and H3 should be very familiar. So here we go, H3, and it's saying, let's say for example, 15 counties with growth greater than 15%. And so it's outputting that information, and then we're using jQuery to grab that HTML and just bring it back in. Well, when we start to get into some of the more complex Ajax applications, grabbing the HTML is a little too basic for us. It becomes very cumbersome to grab that information. So think about it like this. JSON is going to be the glue. JSON is just a way to organize the data. So rather than sending back HTML, what we're going to do is we're going to send data to a PHP page. So the data is name equals value, name equals value, name equals value. So it's just pure data going over to a PHP page. Well, why don't we just send pure data back? Well, how are we going to organize that data? We have to organize it in some sort of structure so that when it comes back to the jQuery code, that we can go through it and pull the information out and do something useful with it. So up until now we've been using HTML. That's not a useful structure. What we're going to do is we could either use XML or what we could use is JSON. So if you wanted to learn a little bit more about JSON and how it's structured, you could simply go over to Google and type in JSON and hit enter. And I didn't mean to do that. Alright. So you could go over to JSON and look at an example of what JSON code looks like. So this is the way that JSON information is formulated. Now this looks really complex if it's the first time that you've seen it, but it's actually not that difficult. And PHP 5 comes with some functions that makes it very, very easy for you to work with JSON code. So let me go ahead and show you what that looks like. So let's go to demo 7. Now I have to warn you, demo 7 is not going to do anything useful. What I want to do is give you a way to see the JSON information as it comes back. So let's go to demo 7. It's the same as demo 6, except that it's posting the information to a page called results4.php. Okay, so it shows you 4 counties with growth greater than 25%. Now when I hit get details, you're not going to get anything easily recognizable. You're going to get JSON code. So this is the way that the data is organized. Now notice that it's just county equals this, county equals that, county equals this, county equals that. So it's just pure data being sent back. So I can bump it up to 30, get details, and it shows 3 results. So this is how the information is organized. But if we know how to use, how to manipulate or cycle through JSON data when it comes back, and jQuery makes it very easy to do that, as I will show you, then this is a very efficient way for you to set up your web application to communicate with the database and receive the information back, and then you can cycle through the information, put pins on a Google map, as I'll show you soon, or do all sorts of things. So I wanted to show you very quickly how what JSON looks like, where you could go to get more information about it, and in that way, once we move on to demo 8, this will make a lot more sense. But JSON is a very, very powerful way for you to send information from your database back to your jQuery web application powered page, or I should say your web application powered by jQuery. In the last tutorial, I showed you I just gave you a very small taste of what JSON was about, but I want to show you a real-life example, and that's what I did with Demo 8. Demo 8.php is very, very similar to the previous ones, Demo 6. I'd say it's closest to Demo 6, so let me show you what happens. When I change the drop-down, it tells me how many counties I should expect. When I hit Get Details, now I get a very nicely formatted list. Now this is not anything that I could not do with just grabbing HTML. I'm using JSON. I could do this using what you've seen, say Demo 2 through Demo 6. So there's no reason why I could not do that, but at some point I'm going to have to show you how to use JSON so that when we get into the more advanced web applications, demonstrations, that it will make sense. So let me go ahead and open up Demo 8 and show you what's going on. Alright, so once again at the top, this is nothing but a little bit of PHP to power the drop-down field. So we've got that information there, and let me scroll down. Alright, we're pulling in the latest version of jQuery, and we're using the form plugin. That's the same as Demo 6. The HTML is very much the same. At document ready, we're appending this div with a target ID. That's going to be our target div ID. That's going to be our container where we're going to send the results. So, but notice that I've commented out. See these two forward slashes? That means that I've turned off the feature in the form plugin where we're sending this information straight back to the target div. Okay, so something has to happen once the information comes back. So before submit, we're still firing off this function down here called show request. On success, we're using a function called process JSON. So that's this function right here when it comes back, and I need to tell it. This is a new option that I have not turned on until now. I've turned on data type JSON. So I'm telling the form plugin that we're not sending back HTML or text, or XML. We're looking for JSON. That's what we're expecting. We're expecting JSON information. And just as I've shown you many times before in previous tutorials, we are binding this to the county form, the form with the ID county form, and these are the options that are being sent right here. Alright, so as with other tutorials, the show request, all that's doing is it's adding an extra name value pair. This time it happens to be JSON equals 1. And by the way, as I mentioned before, but it's worth repeating, I'm sending the information to results4.php, and I'll show you why that's important in a second. Now this is where, when I show you results 4, it's going to become obvious why, or I'm going to explain why you need to use PHP 5. Okay, so moving right along. Okay, so the function that takes over once the information comes back, when the JSON data comes back, this function takes over, and it grabs the JSON, is put into the JSON object, is put into the data variable. And what we're doing is we're using a function of jQuery to cycle through every value of the JSON object. So for each data that's holding the JSON object, fire off this function. And this is where we are currently building we're adding to a variable we've set called county list, and this is HTML, li this county. So this refers to the JSON information county, and then close it off. And then what we're doing once we cycle through, so each function starts here and it ends right here. So once that has completed, once it has cycled through every bit of the JSON object, it's going to look for ID target div and put in the HTML and add an unordered list HTML, give it an ID of county list, and then put in the variable county list. These two have nothing to do with each other. I just happen to name them the same. So this is actually being, the reason why I put this in here is because I have some CSS cascading style sheet code that adds the nice green check marks. And then this information is being put right here, and then we close out our unordered list. So we add all that into the target div. Alright, so let's scroll down. And this is the same code that you've seen before, where once we change the drop down, it goes over to rowcount.php and grabs the information, says here's how many values you should, here's how many results you should expect. Alright, now I know that probably seemed like a mouthful, but let me show you what's going on. Let me hit refresh again. This is demo 8, just to make sure we're on the same page. So I hit 30% increase. So it says I should expect 3 counties with growth greater than 30%. Before I hit get details, let's hit Firebug. And when I hit get details, watch below. Let me slide this over. Okay, so it went to results 4. And if I click this and tell it to load the response, here's what came back. So when I tell it show this county, this dot county, it's grabbing, so it's cycling through this dot county, okay, Flagler County, this dot county, okay, Lake County, this dot county, okay, the last one is Osceola County. Then it's wrapping all of that inside of an unordered list and popping that in there. Now, if you were to view the source code, you're not going to see any of that, except we have, as I've shown you in a previous tutorial, we have the Firefox Web Developer add-on, and so I can view the generated source. So this will show me all the magic that's happened. Here's our target div, and that's where the information was added. So that's where the unordered list was added. And actually, I see that I have 2 target divs, and this is a mistake. It's a mistake that I pointed out earlier, because you might have been wondering, well, where's that unordered list? It's up here inside the first target div. So let me go back, and I'm going to go ahead and fix something. This error is not going to be in your files because I'm going to remove it right now. But sometimes you can learn a lot by seeing a mistake. Okay, here's the mistake, and I breezed through this in a previous tutorial. Notice that the first thing that I do is I look for a div with ID of main, and I add this div, our target div, so that we have a container to add this into. But then later on, and this is just a remnant from some other code that I've written, I'm doing the same thing again. So all I need to do is I need to remove this. So all I have to do is choose, look for form, ID of county form, field set, find, select growth. I could even, if you want to, I'll just show you that I can just remove this. So I can just skip all this, look for a form with ID of county form with a select field with an ID of growth. When it changes, do all this other stuff that you've already seen. Okay, I can save that. And let me go ahead and re-upload this and show you. Here we go. I'll re-upload demo 8. Click drag and drop. Let's hit refresh. Alright. Now you're not going to see any difference in the functionality. Well, okay, it's showing a little bit differently here. Get details. Boom. Alright, so I can view generated source. And there you go. So you got target div, da 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 da. Now, if I want to put it back inside of this field set, then what I can do is I can hit Control Z a few times, and all I have to do, so now it's going to look for the field set, it's going to append the target div. So what I'll do this time is I will just remove, where are we? Okay, so I'll remove the first line that says go and add this target div over here. So in other words, I'm just playing around. I'm going to keep the second version, lose the first one. Alright, let's hit refresh. See what we got. 15% increase. All right, get details. Boom. There we go. So I personally like that version better. And if I view the generated source, scroll down, where are we here? Okay, so here we go. Div ID equals target div. So now I just have one target div. I've just placed it in a different location. Unordered list with ID of county list, and then here's Clay County, Collier County. So again, if I ever want to figure out what's going on behind the scenes, that's where the web developer extension and the Firebug add-on for Firefox is extremely handy for trying to dissect exactly what's going on behind the scenes when I've got a jQuery powered Ajax application. So in the last tutorial we got our first introduction to working with JSON data. Now I'm going to show you how to start using that information and start being able to iterate or move through the JSON object, grab information out of the JSON data that we're receiving, and start to make some use out of it. And this is going to be a fairly basic demonstration, but it's going to be the first step towards moving towards a very powerful, very user-friendly web application. So let's go ahead and get started. We're on demo 9. Let me show you what this does. As soon as I make the change, as you've seen before, it tells us how many results to expect. I click Get Details, and it generates a very attractive unordered list with green check marks that are set up in the cascading style sheet of style1.css. But what happens is these are actually links. If you look down here, these are actually links to maps.google.com, and then it has the information in the URL. So you notice I'm hovered over Lee County, and if you look down at the bottom left hand corner, it says and Q equals Lee County, and that means that we're able to grab this information out of the JSON object and put it in there. So if I were to hover over Flagler County, it's going to say and Q equals Flagler County. Now these links are set to open in a new window or a new tab. And what's going to happen is as soon as I click this, it's going to send me over to, as I said, a new window or a new tab, and it's going to go to Google Maps. Let me show you what that looks like. Here we go. So it just takes a second for the Google Map to fire up, and it puts a pin somewhere in the middle of Flagler County, and so that's how that works. So it's not quite a completely it's not the finished product of the JSON, or sorry, not the JSON, the Ajax Web Application. I lost my train of thought there for a second. But let me show you where we are in the process, and that way we can start building on this in the future demos. So I go to Demo 9, open this up in Notepad++. All right, and I'll start scrolling down. We've got the jQuery latest. We've got jQuery.form.javascript. And much of this is the same as you've already seen. We're grabbing the JSON data when it's coming back. So in other words, on success, using the Ajax form plugin, we're going to fire off this function, process JSON. And this data is the JSON object. So what I want to do is I'm going to use the each function from jQuery, from the jQuery library, and I'm going to iterate or move through, cycle through every single one of these data points inside the JSON object. So I'm also setting up, I have the ability, jQuery gives us the ability to fire off a function and use this add in I or N or whatever you want to use, but most people use I. And this will be the number. So the first one is going to be 0, the second one is going to be 1, and so this gives us another variable, another tool to work with as we're iterating through this information. And now what happens is I've set up this variable called county list, and I've set it to equal nothing, but I've set it up to equal something. What I'm saying is I set this up equals whatever, and that gives me the ability to use plus equals, which means I'm going to add on to this variable. So when it starts off, the variable is blank, but it's been set. So I start to iterate through this, and I start to build. This is HTML here. Opening li tag, reference, http maps.google.com, and then here's where it gets interesting, where it says and q equals, and then I break out by ending I use single quotes plus this dot county. Now this dot county means this refers to the JSON object, and we're looking for county data. So this dot county, and then it's going to add comma Florida. Actually, I can remove this. Plus county. Yep, I can remove that because we already have, I just noticed, okay, because it's Clay County, Collier County, so I don't need to say Clay County County. I can just do Clay County plus Florida, comma, plus Florida, target equals blank, and that target equals blank is going to open a new tab or new window. Again, I'm breaking out of my code here, and I'm doing plus this dot county, so it's putting the name of the county inside of encapsulated by this link HTML, and then I'm closing off the li tag, and I just lost my place. Closing off the li tag right here. So it's just basic HTML with this dot county thrown in where I want this dot county to show up, where I want the county name to show up. And then what I'm doing is once I populate that variable with all of the li and ah reference information, I'm going to take that and put it inside of the target div using the jQuery HTML function, and I'm going to use an opening unordered list HTML tag, give it an ID of county list, and then I break out, do plus county list, and that information is this right here, county list, and then I close off my unordered list. So that's it. So what happens is, hit refresh. When we make the change, it tells us how many counties, how many results to expect. Click Get Details, we get this nice list, but the list has, as I move over this, the list has the information. It knows where we are in the JSON object, and it creates these link tags. So I can just click any one of these, and it's going to go over to the correct location on the Google map. Now, I made a change to the code, so let me pause the video and upload the new code, and then you'll be able to see that the change that I made works even better. Alright, so I'll go and grab demo 9, click drag and drop. It asks me, do I want to overwrite? Yes. Alright, so let me go hit the refresh button. Let's try this again. Click Flagler County. And I thought I had made that change. Did I not save it? Oh, okay. See how it's red? I didn't save it yet. As soon as I hit File, Save, it's going to save that. Alright. I'm just trying to move too fast, so I'll click drag and drop, upload it again, hit refresh, change it, get details, click Flagler County. And now it says Flagler County, Florida, instead of what I had before, which is Flagler County, County. It's kind of redundant. So now it's Flagler County, Florida. By the time you get this code, it's going to be the corrected version, so you're not going to see that. But I just wanted to show you how I set this up, and by spotting that mistake in my jQuery code, I was able to show you exactly how we're grabbing this JSON data, where it goes, and how to set up the link tags in our unordered list. Now that we've finished with demo 9, we are on the home stretch. Integrating JSON was a big step forward because now we're going to be able to work with the JSON information. I'm going to take you through this step by step. So from demo 9, guess what's next? Demo 10. So let me go ahead and show you demo 10, how it's different and what it does. The first obvious difference is that we have the Google Map over here. In the previous tutorial, I showed you how to get your Google Map API key. So let me view the page source and show you where that is. Here we have two calls to some JavaScript. It's called Mapstraction, and that gives us the ability to work with the Google Maps, or really even Yahoo or MSN Maps, very, very easily. So it gives us the ability to switch out these maps. I'm only going to work with Google Maps, but Mapstraction makes it very easy to move from one map to another. And it also just makes it flat out easier to work with any of the maps. And I also have this JavaScript call to maps.google.com. This is the code that Google has given us with the API key right here. So that pulls in the JavaScript, but I still need a place to put the map, and I'm putting it in div ID gmap. Now what determines how big this map div is and where it's located and whether it has a border or not. Let me use the web developer extension to show you. I'm going to view the CSS, cascading style sheet information, and I'll click on style1.css. So you can scroll to the bottom of style 1 and you'll see right here there's this gmap information. We got a width of 400, height of 400, padding, margin 5 pixels, border 1 pixel solid, dark, not quite black, but a dark border, and we're floating it over to the right hand side of the page, and that's how we get this effect, like so. And so that's how the map is shown on the page. So let's go ahead and walk through this demo live on the web and see what it does. I will make a change here. It tells me I should expect 4 results, 4 counties with growth greater than 25%. Click Get Details. And just as in previous tutorials, we get this nice unordered list with the green check marks that are also set up in the cascading style sheets. Now, let's see here. Previously, these links would take us over to a new tab or new window. And if I hover over these, you can still see that information generated down below. That hasn't changed. So you see maps.google.com and then the information for the county, so that if a new tab were to open, the information would be there. But this is a little bit different. We're going to start working with the JSON data. The ultimate goal as we move through these tutorials, the ultimate goal is to be able to put all of this information over on the map. But we're not quite there yet. I want to take this one step at a time. So what I'll do is I'll click one of these, and you see that there's a number. I'll click another one. You see that there's another number. So what do these numbers relate to? What they relate to is the order that these appear in the list, unordered list. So this would be number 0. Arrays start with 0 unless you somehow use some code to change it, but they just start with 0. So Flagler County is going to be 0. The next one's going to be 1. Next one's going to be 2. Next one's going to be 3. So what we're going to be able to do is, since we can write this code that tells us what number the visitor has clicked, we can then go to the JSON data. Remember, we're receiving JSON data back, so we can go into that JSON data and very quickly and easily grab that information. We can say, okay, we're working with the 4th record or the 3rd record or the 2nd record. So go grab that record or that information out of the JSON data, the JSON object, grab that information and then put that on the map. But we're not quite there yet. I just want to be able to show you how we get that information. So with that said, let's flip over to the source code for Demo 10. I've got Demo 10 opened in Notepad++, and the first bit, again, this should be very familiar by now. That's PHP that generates the dropdown. We've got the JavaScript calls to Mapstraction and the Google JavaScript for the map API. We've got the Gmap right there. Now here's where things get different, where we have script. Before we do document ready, I'm setting up a variable for Mapstraction. That's going to give me the ability to load information into this Mapstraction variable and move it from function to function and have it remember what that value is as we move from function to function. A lot of this is very similar. We've got we're processing the JSON when it comes back. We're building this. We're iterating through the JSON data, and we're building a county list, and we're adding hrefs tags to the information. But here's where it gets different. I'm adding a class equals map link. So each one of these data points, each one of these links actually gets a class equals map link. So let me view the generated source using the web developer extension, and I'll go in here and show you. It's going to be a little bit tough to see, but if I go to the generated HTML, you'll see here's part of the link, and just as I would expect, it's giving us class equals map link. And that's going to give me the ability to add some more code. So I can go into the target div, just as we have in previous tutorials, inject HTML, add this county list to the target div ID, and then I can add on, this is where it changes, I can just chain additional methods on here. So I can just keep going and do .find. So in other words, find within that target div, find links with a class of map link. And then when they are clicked, so I just did .click. In other words, I'm still chaining more functions here. .click, when one of these is clicked, fire off this function. And when that function fires, we're going to create a variable called index. I could name it whatever I wanted to, but I chose index. And then I'm going to use a jQuery function, which is also called index. Use that to find where this refers to the link that was clicked, where this falls within all links with a class of map links. So in other words, find all links with a class of map links. So that would be the unordered list that we generated. And where does this fall? And store that information, whether it's a 0, 1, or 2, whatever that is, store that information in this variable called index. And then the next line throws up an alert box, sends up an alert box, and just sends that to the browser so we can see what that value is. And then the return false is helpful so that if without the return false, it's still a link, and so that would actually take me over to that Google Map page. I don't want to go over to the Google Map page. I want to stay on this page. So that's why I'm doing return false, so that we stay right here. So what happens, as you already saw, when I click this should be a 2. And so we stay right here on the page. It doesn't take us over to the link because that is an actual link. So that is that's demo 10. So now what we're going to be able to do is, since we can tell where these links fall within this unordered list of counties, whether we've got 4 or whether we have 16, we're going to be able to grab the exact number of where this falls in the unordered list, go to the JSON data, and start populating the map with the information that we already had loaded from JSON data. This gives us the ability, and here's what's important, we don't have to go back to the database. We don't have to query the database again, do another Ajax call. We've already grabbed this information, and because it's all stored as pure data in the JSON object, then that gives us the ability to just start working with the information rather than going back to the database and say, hey, can you give me that info again? This is one way to make our web applications faster and more efficient. So let's dive into demo 11. This is going to be a very small baby step forward over demo 10. Demo 10, we were grabbing the index and just showing that as a numerical value by sending a JavaScript alert to the browser. Demo 11, which is what I have open right now, is just, as I said, a small step forward. So let me show you what that small step looks like. Make a change. This should look familiar by now. Get details, nice unordered list. I can hover over these and the links will appear in the bottom left-hand corner. And if I were to click one, we actually get the name of the county. So the biggest difference in the code is that what we're doing is, rather than, let me move this around, everything's the same. We're still grabbing the index, so we're figuring out from the function that's processing the JSON data. We are going through and figuring out, okay, where does this fall? What numerical value is this in for all links with the class of map link, just like the previous demo. And so we're going to get a numerical value, 0 through however many results are returned, and that information is going to be stored in this variable called index. But now what we do is we're going to go to a variable called county JSON, and this is new. So let me back up and show you that at the beginning of the opening script, at the end of the page, right before document ready, you've seen that in the past I had variable mapstraction. Well, what I can do is I can put comma and then any other variables that I want. So I can put all the variables that I want to be able to set beforehand and have them carry over from function to function to function. I can set these up, and one of them is county JSON. I just named it that way. I could choose whatever name that I want, but this is where I'm going to store the JSON data when it comes back. So the first thing I do when I process the JSON data with this function is that I set county JSON equal to that data. That gives me the ability to carry it into some of these functions and be able to iterate through it. So for example, I'm setting index with a numerical value, and then I'm saying, okay, let's set up a new variable. This one's just going to be v. V equals county JSON. Okay, so this is the JSON object. Open left square bracket, right square bracket, and inside is this numerical value. So that might be a 0 or a 1 or a 2. It could be any of the numbers that represents where this falls in that unordered list. So it's going to look in the county JSON object, grab that number, dot county. So it's going to look for the county information. If we had other information passed back by JSON, so for example, if it was, we could pass the population back. So if we were sending that information back, we'd have to change our PHP code to actually send that info back. But if we were sending it back as say population equals X, then instead of being .county, it would be .population. But all I want is the county name, and that's stored in .county. And then I'm sending that information to an alert box on the page. And of course returning false so that we don't follow, so that the link is not active, we're not taken to the Google Maps page, a new tab does not open up, we stay right on the page. So all we're doing is we're going and grabbing the name information out of the JSON object. And the effect is, as you can see right here. So this is going to give us the ability to do some very interesting things and start sending this. Now that we're going just from a numerical value and we can start to grab the information out of the JSON object, we can start to move that data over to the map, and that's what you'll see in the coming tutorials. This is demo 12, and this is where things really start to take shape, and we can start to get a sense that we've got a web-based Ajax application. So let me show you what demo 12 does. Same as many of the previous demonstrations, we can change the drop down. It shows us how many counties to expect. Click Get Details, we get a very nice unordered list. But here's where this is different, and this is very important. When I click on this, we're not going to get an alert box. It's going to throw a pin on the map, and it's going to add some information. It puts up a nice bubble to give us some info about what county this is. And then I can click on any one of these other counties, and it will recenter the map. Let me shift this around. So we'll recenter the map on whichever one is clicked. So I'll click on Clay County, let's go to Hernando County. So you can see that this is a very useful very useful web-based application. So it's really started to take shape. So let's take a look at what's going on behind the scenes. Okay, so here's demo 12. I got it open in Notepad++. Everything that you've seen before is exactly as in previous tutorials. We're processing the JSON. We're throwing the unordered list into a div with an ID of target div. And then we're figuring out where this falls in the unordered list. We're going to the county JSON variable which holds the JSON object data. We're looking for county information, which is the name. Now here's where we're able to throw this information onto the map. So I'm creating a new variable. I'm calling it gaddress for Google address equals v. So for example, it might be Lee County, comma, Florida. And so that's all the address information that we have. So because we're just doing this off of counties. So I'm keeping it very simple. And then I'm using a function called show address. And this is one that I've created. I'll show you in a second. Show address. I'm sending in the address information, I'm sending in the name of the county, and I have the third bit of the function set to true. And then return false means that we're staying on the page, we're not opening up a new window or anything of that sort. So let me go down and show you what show address looks like. Here's the show address function. And this is one, again, that I've written. So we're looking for an address, we're looking for bubble HTML. So what are we going to put inside of that bubble that we pop open? And center and zoom. Do you want to center and zoom? And it can be either true or false. So this function, what I've done here is I'm using the Google geocoder. So this is a Google function that was already pulled in when you grab your maps.google and you got your API key. This is a function that you can pull in, and you can just send it an address, and what it will do is it will come back with a response with a latitude and longitude. So I've just written this information for you so that you can turn 123 Anywhere Street, Miami, Florida 33143 into a latitude and longitude. So it makes it very, very easy. If you don't have that information, then what you would have to do is you would have to pre-populate your database with latitude and longitude. So what we're going to do is we're going to use Google's functionality and just send this information over, and that's what's happening. We're getting a latitude and longitude back, and then we're using Mapstraction to create a new marker at this new latitude point latitude, longitude, and we're using that marker info to set an info bubble. And if center and zoom is true, then we're going to open the bubble and we're going to center it on that latitude and longitude. So if it's false, then it's not going to open up the bubble. But I have it set to true, so this function just takes the address, takes the HTML, and whether you're choosing to true or false, whether you're centering and zooming, it makes the magic happen on the Google Maps. So this is working with both Google's code and the Mapstraction library to make the pins show up on the map. And the result that you get is like so. So we've made a big step forward, but I think that there's room to improve. So in the tutorials that you're going to see that follow this, we're going to take this even further and see what we can do and how we can improve upon what is already a very nice, very attractive, user-friendly Ajax-powered web application. Demo 12 is great. We've got our Ajax-powered web application, but we can make it better. And let me show you what I mean by that. When I select, let's say a 15% increase, or let's make it 25% increase, I'll choose Get Details, and let me pop each one of these pins on the map one at a time. And you'll notice that, first of all, the pins stay here on the map, which may be the way that we want it. And also, you can click the pin, by the way, and that will show up. And you also have zoom control, click and drag. So this is great, but let me show you what happens if I were to change it. Let's say that I'm a visitor. You always have to put yourself in the you have to look at your web-based applications from the standpoint of someone who's coming to your website with fresh eyes, and they're going to use this. They're going to click everything on here. So let's say that I said, okay, great, you've shown me everything with population growth greater than 25%, but what if I want to adjust it down to 20%? So it says Get Details, 13 counties with growth greater than 20%. But notice that our pins are still on here. So I'll click Get Details, and I can start clicking on these. And yeah, they'll show up, but I still have data from the last one. So let me hit the refresh and show you probably a more concrete example. Let's say that I start with 15% increase, and I start clicking some of these data points. Okay, and then I want to change it to 25%. Well, these data points should probably go away, and that's what I'm going to do in Demo 13. So let me show you how that works. Demo 13, here we go. Very similar to before. Let's start with 15%, Get Details. I'm going to click a few of these data points, and you see they start to show up on the map. Very handy. But as soon as I change the drop down to, say, from 15 to 25, these pins are going to go away. So then it takes away that information. I can choose Get Details. Now I'm starting with a blank slate, and I can click anywhere on the map, or any one of these points, and it will show up on the map. So that's a big improvement from a usability standpoint. And the code is very, very easy. So all I've done, Demo 13 is the same as Demo 12, but we have to fire off some extra jQuery code when we change the dropdown. So here's where that select box is with an ID of growth. Here's our change function, and that's always been there. And previously what it was doing was it was grabbing this Ajax information, so we're still doing that. All I'm doing is, before we close off this function, I'm adding Mapstraction dot remove all markers, and because I've set the variable of Mapstraction beforehand, I can use that here. So I can use Mapstraction dot remove all markers, and then the parentheses here. So that's going to make a call to the Mapstraction JavaScript, the library to interact with the Google Map, and it's going to say remove all those markers. So as soon as I change that drop down, it's just going to wipe the slate clean, and then we're going to be able to add pins back to the map. So Demo 13, we just added this one line, but just adding that one line really made a dramatic change to the usability. So there's another demo to follow where we're going to take this yet another step forward. As far as I'm concerned, Demo 13 is a complete Ajax web application. We're done. but I'm going to go ahead and show you Demo 14. Demo 14 is really just a different way of showing the same data. Not necessarily better, it just kind of depends on your point of view. So let me show you what it does. It occurred to me as I was setting up Demo 13, well, maybe we would want to be able to show if we've got, say, 4 results, what if we put all 4 of the pins on the map right away? So let me show you how that works. I'll choose one where we're only going to have, say, 4 results. Now watch what happens on the map. I'll slide this over. I choose Get Details, and automatically we get 4 pins put on the map. And then if I click one of these county locations, that pin will open up and will zoom in and it will center on that county. But it gives us an idea of, for example, this tells me right off the bat, okay, if I'm looking at, just think if this were a real web-based application, in other words, you had this on your website, and someone wanted to find out, okay, where is the majority of the growth in the Florida counties coming from? Well, it's very obvious. It's in the northeast corner of the state. That's where the majority of the growth is coming from. Let me go ahead and take this demonstration a step further. So, as you go up, you get more and more concentration right in this area. Your data points go away. But let's say we back it off to 20%. Well, that's a little bit all over the map, but you can tell that the panhandle is not as active as the rest of the state. Maybe we drop it to 25. Let's see what happens. And it really gives you an indication that the northeast corner of the state is where the highest amount of growth is as far as population is concerned. And I can click on one of these, and it's going to center the map and open up the HTML bubble on that county. Now I can click the bubble and it'll show me, or click the pin and it will open up the new bubble, or I can just go over here and click on one of these links in our unordered list. So let's take a look at how this is happening. This is really not that much different from what we've done before. So let me go into where we're processing the JSON data. Pretty much everything else is exactly as you've seen in previous demonstrations. And that's why I've done these one step at a time, because it makes it very easy to build one on top of the other. So let me go to the end of where we're creating these links, and then we're injecting this HTML into the ID of target div. We're finding all the links with a class of map link. And before, in demos, I believe it was 12 and 13, this was click. So it was .click. So we were automatically going to, we were waiting for a click. Now we're not waiting. We're just going to start iterating through every single one of these JSON results. And we're going to also use our lettering inside of this function that we're creating so that we can grab the index as we're going through this. So the first one is 0, next one is 1, next one is 2. Okay, so we're still grabbing the index value. I don't even know if we need to do that, but let's go ahead and move through this. All right, we're using the, okay, yeah, this, I don't believe we even need this one. I'll just remove that out. Okay, so in previous demos, I was using county JSON, and then I had had the left square bracket, right square bracket. I had index inside of that. Well, now I can use this I. So that I is being used over here to figure out where we are in the JSON object and use the county data. So everything else is the same. We're going to, so as it's iterating, so let's say there's 4 results. It's going to loop through 4 times. First time through, I is going to be 0. Next time through, it's going to be 1. Next time through, it's going to be 2. Last time, it's going to be 3. And every single time it loops through, it's going to fire off the show address function, whereas before, we were waiting for a click to make that happen. Now, we're also going to need to make some magic happen when we click on the function. Let me back up and show you that as we loop through this, for every single JSON result that comes through, we're going to, or every part of the JSON object, I'm setting show address, I'm setting this to be false for opening the bubble. So I'm just setting the pins. So notice that when we click Get Details, all we're getting are the pins. We're not getting the bubbles to open, and that's because I set this value to false. Okay, so I'm using jQuery, this, click, firing off a function, and I'm doing the same thing, show address, but this time I'm setting it to true. So what I'm telling it is, okay, once one of these data points is clicked, once one of these links is clicked, return false. Don't leave this page. Don't open up a new tab or new window. But we want to show the address, the same information as before, but open up the HTML bubble. And that's what we see over here. I can click on Flagler County, and it's going to center and zoom right on Flagler County. I can click on any one of these, and it's going to open up exactly where we need to be. So that's demo 14. Very a lot more advanced. The one problem that I would say with demo 14, and something to think about, is that you'll notice that sometimes results can load a lot fairly slowly if you've got a lot of data points. If you're going to put 20 pins on the map, first of all, you always run into the possibility that Google's geocoder is not able to pick up the address, and then it's going to probably stop putting pins on the map, so you're going to have a problem there. But the other one is that just the usability of putting 35, 50, 75 pins on the map, it begins to lose its usefulness. Whereas when you're putting, say, 3 pins on the map, that's very useful information. But if you're putting, say, 35 pins on the map, see, it takes a while. You can see that there's a little bit of a delay while these pins are being put on the map. Let me start over with demo 14, and I'll just choose a 5% increase. Let's put 52 pins on the map, and I'll show you that this can take a little bit of time. Okay, so the usability of this is kind of questionable. Is it really that useful to be able to do it? So one of the things you might do is you might do some sort of amalgamation, or sort of a cross between demo 13 and demo 14, and figure out, okay, how many results are there? If there are less than 5 results, show all the pins at once. If there are more than 5 results, then just wait for someone to click the pins. And that would be very easy to do. Hopefully you've seen that really you're not limited by anything other than your imagination. Once you got a handle on jQuery and how to use Ajax and JSON and a little bit of PHP or some other server-side code to connect with a data source. So all you need to do now is figure out what sort of I should say web-based application you want to have on your website. And then I'm going to try to answer, in this tutorial, I'm going to try to answer the question of, well, where do I go from here? Where do I go to get data that I can put into a database, or where can I go to create my own, what's called a mashup, so that you've got your own web-based application. So here we have programmableweb.com. Programmableweb.com is a great collection or a directory of mashups. So if you want inspiration, you can go to the mashups tab and see how people have combined, say, Google Maps with other data sources, and you can see what types of mashups are most popular. Obviously mapping so far is most popular, followed by photo and then video. And you can go to the actual API section, and this is where you can click most popular, and under APIs and then most popular, you can see which APIs are being used. And so you can see, okay, well, I can go to Flickr and use their API. So once with an API, that gives you access to Flickr's database or YouTube's functionality. Amazon e-commerce. So the API is the glue that's going to help you or your programmer connect your web-based application with another website, and that's why that's what creates a mashup. I also want to give you some ideas about places to go to get just data. So let's say you wanted to do something similar to what I showed you with the Florida counties. A great place to get public domain data is from our government. From what I understand, anything that our government creates, and that's the United States government, anything that our government creates is paid for with taxpayer resources, and so that data, that work is available for us to use free. There's no copyright on it. We get to use it. So you can go to anything. You can go to Google and type in anything with site:.gov, and that will look for websites that are .gov. Now, just because it has .gov on the URL doesn't necessarily mean it's a U.S. government website, but it's a good starting point. So I typed in census site:.gov, and census.gov comes up, and this is where I actually got some of the data that I used to populate the database in these examples. Another way to connect a third-party website with yours is to use RSS feeds. If you're not familiar with RSS, it stands for Real Simple Syndication, and so you and or your programmer will be able to use some programming code such as SimplePy. That's something that I highly recommend. If you're going to use PHP, simplepy.org is a place where you can grab some open source code that you can download to your computer and then upload to your web server that will give you the ability to handle RSS feeds very, very easily. So once you grab those feeds, let's say that you wanted to grab Yahoo's weather feed for a certain city. That's available via RSS, and so if you know the city or the zip, you can grab the weather information from Yahoo or from several other different sources. Or the news, for example. You could grab local news. So we could do a mashup where you've got these different counties, and then as soon as you click the county, it's going to pull the news in by RSS. So that's what you would do. You would look up a popular RSS feed or find another API and just pull that information in. Another Google search that you could do is just do a search for public domain data and start looking for the best places. The best thing to look for is something like this, which says index of public domain resources. So hopefully there would be a list of public domain resources. So that one result might send you off in a whole bunch of different directions as far as places where you could get copyright-free data that you can populate your database with. And one of those places is Wikipedia. So you can grab information out of Wikipedia, and based on my understanding, the information is free to use. It's open source. Here is a list that I found of very popular APIs. And again, APIs are the glue that you or your programmer are going to be able to set up to connect your web-based application to essentially create a mashup between different third-party websites into one nice web-based interface. And jQuery will probably be the JavaScript code, the JavaScript library that you use to bring all of these different data sources together. But if you go down this list, this is a huge list broken out by category. So you got calendar APIs, community APIs, email, financial, maps, tons of maps, and messaging APIs, music APIs. So, and I'm only halfway through the list. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but there are just a ton of APIs out there that give you a way to communicate with someone else's database and pull information out of there. Now you have to be careful. Please read the terms of service for these third-party websites so you understand what's allowed and what's not allowed. And that's pretty much it. Once you have an idea of what you want to put on your website, just go out and find an API, find some public domain data, and if you need some inspiration, go to programmableweb.com and go under the mashups tab and look at the most popular link under mashups, and that should give you a starting point for some great ideas about different types of third-party websites that you can pull together into one web-based Ajax application. So I hope you enjoyed, and I can't wait to see what you put together.